Hey everyone, Iron Monk here, and today's going to be another commentary video. This one's going to be a 20 Theater of Pain. The affixes on this one are going to be Spiteful, Fortified, and Volcanic. So, right here, we skip the first pack here. You could actually skip this Bloodhorn here as well if you have a rogue, if it's distracted to the right and you're going left. And then we go right into boss here and pop Bloodlust. So right here I pop all my cooldowns, so I pop Zuan and Weapons of Order, because I'm Kyrian. And we focus down Decia, because that does a lot of damage to the tank, so we try to burn that down as quick as possible while getting interrupts on the other mobs when we can. So right here I'm basically just focusing down Decia, doing a lot of spinning crane kicks here, because right now I have 3 stacks of spinning crane kicks and 3 targets, and I'm also running calculated strikes. So spinning crane kick, if you can hit all 3 targets with calculated strikes, is going to be really good here. So just kind of bursting it down, making sure that I keep spinning crane kicking a lot. I have an ability tracker here on the bottom right of the screen. I'll show you what I'm doing. Right now we have that other mob stuck in the green pool, so I'm just trying to stay out of it. And then I got casted Searing Death on me, which is quite a bit of damage. So I popped Karma, and I'm just trying to make sure that I get as much efficient cleave as possible, meaning that when I spinning crane kick or Fist of Fury or any other AoE ability, I want to make sure that I'm hitting both targets. It's easy to do right now because they're both really stacked. I'll have my second set of cooldowns coming up in about 30 seconds, meaning I'll have Zuan and Weapons of Order, since they're both on a 2-minute cooldown, so they'll always be synced up for me. So about 25 seconds until they're up, and we have a little bit of RP, so they should be up for the next pool. So we get ported down here. I am running Diffuse Magic in this dungeon. There's a couple dots in this dungeon that you're able to diffuse off with Diffuse Magic. So I run Diffuse Magic in this dungeon over Dampen Harm. So we're going to go here. We're going to focus down the Arbalist here, because it does randomly shoots people and does a lot of damage. But I'll pop my cooldowns here. So Zuen's popped. Weapons of Orders popped, and Storm Earth and Fire is used here. So what I'm basically doing here is I basically just spinning crane kick, but then I use Rising Sun kick to get the benefit of Weapons of Order, which gives you reduced chi cost on your abilities. So yeah, again, positioning is important here. Tank called for a Ring of Peace because he's taking a lot of damage. This is fortified, so there's a lot of damage going out here on the tank, so he's got to run around. Make sure we don't get with the leap here. But if you try to watch my positioning here, every time I do an AoE ability, I said it on the first boss, but you want to make sure that you are able to hit all the mobs with your abilities. Whirling Dragon Punch probably has the largest range on AoE, and then Fist of Fury is smaller than that, and then Spinning Crane Kick is also pretty large, but you just want to position yourself well. So we're just focusing down these mini bosses in this mini boss area. And the reason why we skip that first pack in the beginning before the first boss is that we're not going to use the last prideful mob. We're going to kill the trash after the last boss and skip the last pride. So I guess one of the trinkets I am using the Quantum Inscrutable device from the other side. And I also have a weak aura on my screen that'll tell me when it procs stats or not, or it's going to do one of the other 4 or 5 things it can do. So I know I know that when I press it, it's going to give me stats. So right here, I'll pop cooldowns again. Since these mini bosses on the fortified week take forever, I'll pop all my cooldowns here. So I popped Zuan, Weapons of Order, Storm Earth and Fire, and my Quantum device. And it gave me critical strike, so it's quite a bit of crit. So we're going to make sure that we burst this thing down. These things just take forever on fortified. But they do give a lot of percent though, so that's good. And we'll be skipping by the next pack after this. So the conduit traits I'm running, I am running calculated strikes and coordinated offensive here. So I'll fixate my clones on a single target, or if I have max stacks of Mark of the Crane, I'll always fixate my clones right away because it'll give me a damage buff. And we are going to skip by this next pack after we finish up this shade. We already used Shroud in the beginning, so it was on cooldown still, so we used Invis Pot. And then we get to our final mini boss here. Now I don't have any cooldowns up right now, so we're just gonna do what we can here. This mob does kind of like a random AoE and then also an AoE that you have to step out of. So we'll finish this up and then we'll get our first prideful mob of the dungeon. Just trying to get out of the whirlwind here. And at this point, since this mob's at oh, never mind. So I did pop cooldowns here. Again, it's always good to pop cooldowns on CD if possible, unless you actually really need it for the next pack or the next boss, because you don't want to lose out on a set of cooldowns. So if you default by using your cooldowns on cooldown, so I use my cooldowns there at near the end of that mob, and then they're still kind of rolling into prideful here, and that they have a spiteful shade on me, so I just want to make sure that I watch out for that. And then I'll have cooldowns again at some point on the boss. Since we only have 2-minute cooldowns as a monk, if you're with Zuen and Weapons of Order, yeah, you want to get as much use out of them as possible. It's never good to sit on a cast for a long period of time if you're gonna be wasting a cast later on, unless you actually need it for a pack or a boss coming up. But this is a fortified dungeon, and my cooldowns are already almost back up. I have about 50 seconds on my cooldowns, so I should have cooldowns up after the first phase of the duel down below. So we get onto the boss here, and as soon as this boss pops a banner, we're going to turn and burn the banner here. I don't have Touch of Death, but it's always good to Touch of Death one of these banners. Probably not the first one, but anyone after the first one, because the first one usually dies because everyone has cooldowns. But sometimes the ones after the first banner don't die that much. And those banners are dangerous because they slow you. They slow the whole group. And so I didn't get sent down here. So I will have cooldowns coming up in about 8 seconds. So I will have them for this banner coming up. And I don't use Touch of Death there because it was dying pretty quickly. But then I pop all my cooldowns again. So I want to make sure I watch out here for his frontals. So here I'm doing my single target rotation, so trying to get as many Rising Sun kicks as possible. So Rising Sun kick, Blackout kick, and making sure I'm maximizing that Weapons of Order buff. So I still didn't use Touch of Death here, but I did Karma the boss. I Karma the boss because I know he was going to do that leap there and it does AoE damage, so I wanted to get some use out of Karma. And I get sent down here. And I think I'm just letting the rogue kill me here. So I use my Touch of Death on that banner. I could have used it on one of the earlier ones, but I'm not really sure why I held it that long. Typically I wouldn't hold Touch of Death that long. but it works out here. It's fine. So I have cooldowns coming up in 10 seconds. We're going to go head towards the ghost area. I give Tiger's Lust to the tank. And he's going to grab a bunch of mobs and bring them back. Now these mobs are super dangerous. They're stuck out there in the Ring of Frost, so we got to break them. Often on these packs I'll pre-karma and pre-diffuse at the same time, just so I can live, because these things do a lot of damage, especially on fortified. And then there's a lot of, we're kind of fighting them out there, which is a little weird. So you gotta watch out for the AoE on the ground. And then we have Spiteful Shades here, so I see the eyes of them ahead, and I'm just gonna back up and let them handle it. Throw a Ring of Peace down. Yeah, I think that Ring of Frost was a little bit too far out there from the mage. Another Spiteful Shade on me. And then we're going to do the rest of this. Actually, we're going to Shroud. Okay, I think we're going to... I think in this run we do this Portal Guardian, and then we come back for the Shades. We actually use our second Bloodlust here. These things are pretty dangerous here because they put a curse on you and then do an AoE damage thing. So I pop Fortifying Brew during the Soulstorm here. I don't have any cooldowns up, I just use Storm, Earth, and Fire. I got another curse on me, it's dispelled, which is good. Now I believe that we go back for these, yeah, we do. So the reason why we came here first was to have more space from running from the spiteful mobs, the spiteful shades. So our tank's going to go out there and grab the rest of the shackled souls. We throw another Ring of Frost down here. I'm going to LOS to make sure I don't get casted on. Waiting for them all to come in, and we're pretty good here. Alright, tank goes in. We go in, we pop our cooldowns here because we don't want to sit on them too long. So we pop our cooldowns here. Spiteful Shades, I use Ring of Peace to get out of there. Now we can't actually take the portal until these all die, so we gotta get in there and hit them a little bit. I just can't get near the one that's fixated on me because they do a significant portion of your health. Alright, so now we get onto this platform here with the two Bone Maguses. You just want to make sure that Bone Spear is interrupted. It is pretty much a one-shot on a high enough key level. Grave Spike's not that big of a deal, but Bone Spear is definitely a big deal. And this will be our Prideful, our second Prideful of the dungeon here. Making sure that we're using our Ring of Peace and everything else we have so we don't get hit by the Spiteful Shade. Now I see this Spiteful Shade running in. He got Vortex by the Druid, which is good, and then it kind of dies on its own. So we have cooldowns coming up in about 40 seconds now. We do have our Quantum Device ready to go. The next pull's kind of hard. Just want to make sure that we actually have damage for it. Now I would recommend never pulling this next pack together. The one guy, the Soulbinder on the right, puts a dot on someone. If that dot goes out during the Soulstorm, it's pretty much GG because it's a dispellable effect, but it goes out on multiple people, so it makes it very difficult. So we CC the Soulbinder and just focus down the Portal Guardian and the Bone Spear guy. So I pop all my cooldowns here. Karma, the Soulstorm. Trying to watch out for shades, and then we can get into the Soulbinder here. So yeah, this guy will randomly put out a dot. So the dot that I have right now on me, I could actually use Diffuse Magic if I had it up, and it will take the dot off me. That's part of the reason why I take Diffuse Magic in this dungeon. Soulbinders put I think it's a curse on you, and you're able to. Actually, I think it's a magic effect. I don't think it's actually a curse. I'm not really sure, but you can diffuse it off when it goes on you. Alright, we have 2 Bone Maguses again. Just Bone Spear here. I used Storm Earth and Fire here. And I think we missed an interrupt. It could have been my fault. My interrupt was up. I think maybe it was miscommunication. But anyway, we get the Battle Res off. And that's what happens when Bone Spear is not interrupted. And now I have a Shade on me. I got meleeed by him and took out 3/4 of my health, so very dangerous. Go back into this a Soulbinder pack over here. So there's Shackled Souls plus a Soulbinder here, so it's quite a bit of damage here. I use Leg Sweep here. Stop everything from casting. And here I'm just, 3 or more targets. Basically, in AoE, you just spinning Crane Kick, Rising Sun Kick, and Fist of Fury to use Whirling Dragon Punch, but your bread and butter is going to be spinning Crane Kick with 3 or more targets in AoE, if you have the Calculated Strikes conduit. This dungeon is more single target focused, so you could make the argument here to go a full single target build and be okay in this dungeon. There's not a lot of AoE in this dungeon. So these Dark Speakers here, you just want to make sure that you don't get yeeted off the edge by their Tornado Winds. And they also put an effect on you that drops pools on the ground, so you want to make sure you keep moving. I have it on me right now, so I'm just going to keep moving. It keeps dropping purple stuff on the ground, so if that goes off while you're in it, it does some damage to you. And I got it applied to me again. And we have cooldowns up right now, but since these mobs are at really low health, there's really no point of me using cooldowns on these mobs. So we're going to sit on them until the next pack. And then we're going to finish up these shades right here, since we can't take the portal until these shades are dead. So there's going to be a Dark Speaker up here, a Bone Magus, and the guy who puts the dot, the Soulbinder. So we try to focus down the... So we want to bolster kill these because we will get prideful during this. So I put my damage onto the Dark Speaker. So he has the most health in here. But the Soulbinder is probably the most dangerous mob in here. So I'm going to make sure these 2 mobs die at the same time. So I have the dot on me right now. And I hit Diffuse Magic, and it takes it off. And now we have Spiteful Shade, so I put my Ring of Peace, and then we got Ring of Frost that goes down. It's still running at me though, so I'm trying to be very careful here. Yeah, shades on these platforms are sometimes a bit scary. So I use my Touch of Death there. It's always good to use, it's really good to use Touch of Death on Prides when you can. I mistimed my Touch of Death there, and it didn't actually have less health than me, so it didn't execute it That was a mistake on my part. So we're about 30 seconds here on cooldowns. Now, the general strategy on this boss to use cooldowns on is after the hands go. After you get grabbed by the hands and you have to stand in the little things on the ground to grab your soul, you get a damage buff. So if you get lucky enough to get that early on while you have cooldowns up, it's a pretty significant damage buff. So on this boss too, if you get targeted with the Parasite cast, which does a significant amount of damage, you can actually diffuse magic it off and dispel it off yourself. So that's another reason why diffuse is just so good in this dungeon. So here I get picked with the hands, or the draw soul. So I'm going to stand in this, and then I'm going to collect my soul immediately, and now I can pop cooldowns here, and I get a damage buff. Now there have been times on this boss where I've waited on cooldowns for too long, and I've never been picked. So it's kind of a balancing act. Like, you can't wait on cooldowns too long on this boss, because sometimes he never picks you with the draw soul. We get picked again. Sometimes you get picked every time, and that's not always fun. So I have Parasite on. Actually, I stood on somebody with Parasite, so the rogue got it, so I took a significant amount of damage. So I have one charge Storm Within Fire, but the boss is at about 10% now, so I'll sit on my cooldowns here. There's not really much value for me to pop a charge of Storm Within Fire with the bosses this low. Especially since we're about to go into the AoE portion of the dungeon. Alright, so we pull it all here, and we Bloodlust. I don't have cooldowns up, I only have Storm Within Fire. So we make sure that we're getting kicked on the Withering Discharge here. Our mage had cooldowns. He did a lot of damage. So this butcher here will do a random chop to you, or on a random player, puts a bleed on you. You can use the Kyrian file to take it off. Or you can karma it, or let the healer heal through it. Shade on me, I'm going to knock it away. I tried to paralyze it, just to stop it for a second. Now I do have cooldowns up now, and I'll use them on the next pack. It's just hard to get value out of these, out of the cooldowns on these types of packs, because the mobs always leap out. But I will pop cooldowns here. We are trying to chase down the mobs. I think I'm the only disease spell in the group, so you'll see me dispelling the tank every so often. Spiteful Shade. I got to AFK a bit. So our route actually has us pulling this gas bag. There are other routes where people actually skip by this, but the route that we've done here, we actually pull this guy. And I believe it will be Prideful right after this for the next pack, which is kind of a scary pack. I use Karma here. This guy does pulsating AoE just around him, so I use Karma, get a little bit of damage out and some defensive component to it. So we're finishing up our pride here. I have all my cooldowns up. This gets a little scary at the end here. So we pop all our cooldowns here, making sure that we get our interrupts, making sure that we're watching our feet so we don't step in the AoE on the ground. Get a Spiteful Shade on me, so he's Ring of Peace. And then we're going to solo pull this gas bag, and then we'll do all the little mobs that jump from the ceiling afterwards. So we fight another gas bag here. I do have Karma up. Looking back at it now, I would have probably used Karma now. Yeah, I do use it anyway. It's on a short cooldown. I think it's 1.5 minutes or 2 minutes. It might be 2 minutes. Yeah, it's a 2-minute cooldown, so it's a relatively short defensive. And there's nothing coming after this that I really need a defensive for. I do pop Fortifying Brew here too. So we pull these spewers with the Butcher and the Disease Horror. Make sure that we get kicks on the spewer for Withering Discharge. Our mage died there. I think we get a battle res him. So I only had Storm Earth and Fire up, so I just popped that. I dispel the tank. So, like I said earlier, our route here has us skipping the last pride, so this won't be 100% here. So we'll go into this boss, and then we'll go into the last boss, and then kill Trash. So on pool here we have Zuen, but we do not have Storm Earth and Fire. So we have Weapons of Order and Zuen, but no Storm Earth and Fire. We have Storm Earth and Fire in about 15 seconds. So we will wait until we have Storm Earth and Fire up, so we can line up all our cooldowns together. We also have the Quantum Device coming off CD as well. So it'll be after this. You just want to make sure that you're careful here, don't get impaled. If you do get impaled, you can Kyrian file off the dot from the being impaled to bleed. So right here we pop all our cooldowns here. We're going to just try to blast on the boss. Just want to make sure that you're watching your feet here. Make sure you don't step in the green puddles. So yeah, this boss is pretty rinse and repeat. We're just gonna do the same thing over and over again. Just watch the size of the room so you don't get impaled, and watch the AoE that he does on the ground. Watch the green stuff. I actually don't mind this boss that much. There's good constant cleave on it. And now we have about 5 minutes left right now after that boss, heading to the last boss, which should be enough time. This last platform here probably has about 40 seconds RP though, so we probably have closer to about 4 minutes left to kill the boss, which is plenty of time on this key level to kill this boss. Okay, so we come up and we pull the blood horn here. So we're actually being pretty efficient here and killing this mob during RP. Usually we pull this mob straight into boss as soon as he spawns, but I think that we felt really good about the timer, so we did not pull this into the boss. So we're just going to finish this up and then we'll head into the boss. We have Bloodlust. I have all my cooldowns up and we'll use everything here on pool. We're going to kill the... Actually, we don't... The healer said... Healer doesn't really need mana on this boss that much, so we just go right into the boss. We pop Bloodlust on pool. You can pop Bloodlust at 50% for a little bit more safety for healing, but we pop Bloodlust on pool here. Use all our cooldowns. Make sure you watch out the frontal here for the Dark Devastation. So we want to make sure that we get away from that portal there, because you will get stunned and probably die. Let me just AoE down these ads. And we're approaching 50%, and this is when he phases into his next phase, where you will see mobs that spawn around the room that you just have to dodge. Make sure we dodge the AoE on the ground here. Alright, these are those bowls that run across the room, so make sure you don't get hit by them. We pop diffuse magic here. To try to mitigate some of that damage. Now, the boss is dying pretty fast. We just make sure that we don't get run over by one of these things. That was it. That was the boss done, and then we just gotta finish up some trash here. And then we're done the dungeon. So this is gonna be a 20 Theater of Pain. If you like this video, please like and subscribe. If you want to hang out with me on Twitch, you can find me at twitch.tv/IronMonkTyson. I'll leave a link in the description below. It's always good talking with you guys that have come from here to Twitch, and we can talk about anything you want, and if you have any specific questions, or you can leave your questions below and I'll surely answer them there as well. But I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks.